everybody. This is The Big Story. I'm John Gibson reporting from Washington, D.C. Jurors in the Scott Peterson murder trial are behind closed doors deciding whether or not he killed his wife, Lacey, and their unborn son. Correspondent Claudia Cowan covering the trial. She is live now in Redwood City, California. Hi, Claudia.
Hi, John. In fact, we are just now getting word from inside the courthouse that the judge and the lawyers are meeting in the judge's chambers this afternoon. We do not know why, but here on day 3 of deliberations, with 6 hours down and just 2 to go, trial watchers say at this point it appears unlikely we will have a verdict today, with some even going so far as to saying don't expect one soon, because they say the man who many here believe is leading the discussion in these deliberations is likely to go over each piece of evidence in detail. Yesterday, Judge Al DeLucchi would not deny that the foreman is juror number 5. He's a lawyer and a doctor who wound up on the panel back in June when the first juror, number 5, Justin Falconer, was bumped. This foreman works in the high-tech industry here in Silicon Valley and has an in-depth knowledge of DNA testing, which factored into this case. Mitochondrial DNA analysis on a strand of black hair found in a pair of Scott Peterson's pliers showed that it could not have come from Scott, but could have come from Lacey. And that hair emerged as the strongest piece of physical evidence linking Lacey to Scott Peterson's boat. During 5 months of testimony, juror number 5 took copious notes. Trial observers say with his legal and medical background, this foreman could emerge as a problem for the prosecution.
In general, DAs don't want lawyers. They're sticklers for detail. They're going to read every single element. In addition to that, this guy has taken 19 notebooks full of notes, and I have a feeling he's going to go through every single notebook before he's done. He's the kind of guy that when a juror starts to say, well, maybe this happened, he's going to say, no, no, no. That's speculation. We can't do that. And in a case with very little evidence, it's bad news for the DA.
We know the jurors have asked to see a couple of exhibits, specifically pictures of the Petersons' house, as well as of Scott's warehouse. Now, these pictures were taken by Modesto police back on December 24th, 2002. That, of course, being the day Scott reported his wife missing. If there is no verdict today, this jury will have to spend the weekend sequestered at their hotel. People cannot call them, but they can make outgoing calls. Their TV viewing options are really quite limited. No regular programming for these folks. However, they can watch movies or sports over the weekend. They cannot have visitors. They can use computers, but they can't go on to the internet. Above all, they cannot deliberate. In fact, they're not even allowed to talk about the case until everyone comes back here to the courthouse first thing Monday morning. And watching over these 12 jurors, as well as the 5 alternates, 21 bailiffs who were sworn in by the court earlier this week. John.
Claudia Cowan in Redwood City, California. Claudia, thanks a lot. Of course, we're not supposed to know what's going on in the jury room, but we certainly can connect the dots. Joining me now with their expert insight, Fox News senior judicial analyst, Judge Andrew Napolitano, and in Los Angeles, jury consultant Richard Gabriel. Judge, you first. I don't quite understand the point. Why are these people sequestered now when they haven't been sequestered all along?
Boy, it may be a procedure unique to California. I don't want to blame California, and Mr. Gabriel would know more about California than I. But it seems like a peculiar and unfair waste of time to lock them into a hotel. Lock them in the jury room and let them deliberate over the weekend. I think that the reason they're not allowed to listen to people like us now is because of a fear that we might suggest to them how they should interpret the evidence. Guess what? We've been doing it for the past 5.5 months, John.
Richard Gabriel, about this lawyer-doctor who's on the jury that people think is leading the charge with his 19 notebooks and his expertise on mitochondrial DNA, how did he get on there anyway?
Well, he was an alternate. I mean, here's the thing, both sides are looking at a guy like this and hoping he goes their way. The defense is taking a chance. They're going, I need a strong personality on there. I need somebody extremely analytical who can pick apart and create a very high standard of proof for the prosecution in this case, and is not going to be very amenable to circumstantial evidence. So the defense, I think, made a fairly sort of safe choice in leaving him on. The prosecution, they're looking for opinion leaders, and if they feel like they've got a good ultimate piece of the puzzle, they could sit there and say, I'm hoping this guy leads the charge for me, and dismissing any of the speculation about Scott Peterson's alibis. So I think they're both sort of banking on him. I think the defense has a better shot with this guy than the DA does.
Judge, is there a chance that some dynamic can develop in the jury where, you know, there's this guy who's leading it, he's a lawyer, he's a doctor, he keeps all these notes, and he's going to keep them in there over the weekend, and maybe the rest of the jurors won't be so happy about that next week?
Well, that's a very good observation, John, and Claudia sort of scared me into a sense of reality a few minutes ago. You'll recall that I comfortably predicted yesterday at this time that we would have a verdict by today at this time, because they don't want to go through this wasting of time over the weekend. And Friday afternoons is a great time to deliver a verdict. The jury is free for the weekend, and they don't have to go back on Monday. But guess what? If this lawyer doctor, who has 19 loose leaves full of notes, that's the size of Encyclopedia Britannica, is going to insist that they go through everything in his notes and all of the physical evidence, it will take a month to do all of that in the limited time of 8 hours a day that they have, and excluding weekends.
So, Richard, have you seen an instance before in your experience where there was this sort of super smart guy in the middle of everything, insisting everybody, follow his wisdom, and jury ends up getting hung?
Well, it can lead that way. It's very common in a long, complicated or extensive case like this. And especially in this particular area, San Mateo has a very high socioeconomic demographic. So the fact that a smart person is going to end up on this jury is very common. In terms of them leading them to a hung jury, I'm not sure that's going to happen. These jurors are incredibly invested in this case. They've been spending months going over it. They don't want to come back saying, gee, we can't decide. However, there are very strong personalities on this jury, and if it does sort of break two ways and breaks into two separate camps, you can end up with a hung jury. The sort of determining factor is ultimately how they negotiate the evidence, and this jury, I think, is going to be very careful, go through this piecemeal, and go and be very comprehensive. They know the world's watching. They don't want to be accused of rushing into a verdict.
But on the other hand, Judge, it's really easy to break along a certain line in that jury room that says, well, where's the evidence she was even murdered? I mean, where's the evidence he did it? On the other hand, as I always say to you, he'd be the most unlucky, innocent man in the world that he went fishing where his wife's body turned up.
John, you know as well as any non-lawyer that I know how lawyers think. And the defense must be jumping for joy that this lawyer/physician has become the leader of the pack, so to speak, because he is going to scrutinize this evidence and induce the jury to do the same through the eyes of a lawyer, taking literally the judge's instructions about don't go with your gut. It's got to be compelling evidence. It's got to be proof beyond a reasonable doubt. And if they start with the government hasn't even proved that a murder was committed, again, they'll either be there for a month or it'll be an acquittal.
But Richard Gabriel, one of the things the judge does not consider, because he's a judge and he worked in the courtroom and sat on the bench, is these jurors have to go home. They have to go to their street, to their neighborhood. And if they're going to walk down the street in their neighborhood and their neighbor's going to look at them and say, you let that guilty guy go?
Oh, yeah. Clearly, this is going to be a very tough job. I mean, there's all this social pressure. Sort of common wisdom, I think, is developed that this guy is guilty in the popular consensus. But, you know, there's been some questions that have arisen during the trial to say, well, they haven't put on a lot of strong evidence in the case, so they're going to take their time. I think that the defense is counting on strong enough personalities that are going to be able to resist sort of the pressures. But you know what? It is in the back of everybody's minds to say, boy, if I come back with a not guilty verdict, boy, I sure could be criticized, and that is one of the pressures that is weighing heavily on this jury right now.
Richard Gabriel, thank you. Judge Andrew Napolitano, the judge rules. Judge, thank you. Appreciate it. Coming up on the big story, U.S. jets and artillery pounding Fallujah, and ground troops are prepared to go in. What will they face when they finally attack? President Bush promising to stay the course in Iraq and Afghanistan during his second term, but what will a second Bush term mean for the war on terror? Already feeling withdrawal symptoms from the election? Cheer up, it's never too early to start talking about the next one. Heather now will take a look at the very, very early favorites.
2005 Hyundai Tucson with America's best warranty. Perfect for whatever, whenever.
To illustrate Singular's amazing deal, let's say this man is 1,000 minutes and this box is $39.99. 1,000 minutes in this tiny, tiny $39.99 box. Amazing, huh? Oh, and you get rollover.
Get Singular's best value ever. 1,000 nationwide anytime minutes with rollover for just $39.99. And get this new Motorola camera phone.
I call it my everyone should get one plan.
Our best value ever. Singular, raising the bar.
Planning on purchasing a new home? How about refinancing your old mortgage and cashing out some equity? Would you like monthly payments that are dramatically lower than a conventional 30-year fixed-rate mortgage? Then call or click on to Ditech.com, a direct mortgage lender. Right now, you can lock in today's low rate that's fixed for the first 5 years, and there are no broker fees. At this rate, you could buy a bigger house or lower your monthly payments on the one you own. Ditech.com. Apply online or call 1-800-DITECH-1.
1-800-PET-MEDS, America's largest pet pharmacy, with some colder weather tips to protect your pet's health.
To minimize risk of infestation, it's important to keep your pet on both heartworm and flea and tick prevention all year long. Also, colder weather can mean painful bones and stiff joints. Supplements such as Cosequin will help keep pets active and pain-free.
1-800-PET-MEDS delivers all your pet's prescription and non-prescription medications and health products, guaranteeing the lowest prices with free shipping. Order online or call now.
I think we're prepared for it. I think we're ready to get the job done, whatever we got to do.
Still war on in Fallujah. 5 air raids in 12 hours, softening enemy positions in Fallujah. A major ground assault is expected any time now. The commanders are just waiting for orders. Gulf War Tank Platoon Leader Rob Holmes joins me now from Dallas to talk about the military plan. A big question, Rob. Can Fallujah be taken in time for the Iraqi January elections?
Absolutely. Fallujah is something that we can do over the next several weeks, but definitely in time for the elections. And I think that'll be important motivation for our soldiers and certainly the Iraqi soldiers that will participate in the offensive. It's not like Afghanistan where the terrain is so rigorous that we can't go through Fallujah in a much faster way.
All right, what is this going to be like? Is this going to be ugly, bloody, house-to-house fighting, which the U.S. takes a lot of casualties, or are we somehow going to be able to, you know, kind of use snipers, I guess, and air attacks and pick them off one by one?
I think a little bit of all that, I'm afraid. It will be difficult fighting. Military operations, urban terrain is something that we're prepared to do, but at the end of the day, you're talking about infantrymen going street by street, house by house, kicking in doors, and killing the bad guys that are there. Our technology does help us, certainly with command and control, but at the end of the day, this is very difficult stuff. When you're in an urban setting, you don't have the standoff with the weapon systems that you do in a more open setting. You got to get closer to the enemy. But at the same time, that doesn't necessarily mean that we're going to have heavy U.S. casualties. I think the insurgents, though, ought to plan on a lot of casualties on their side.
Well, I mean, you know, there's been some thought that maybe this whole thing has been put off, that the U.S. didn't order it until after the election because we just didn't want to confront the world or the United States with how bloody this is going to be. Is that overstating the case, being excessively worried, or is taking Fallujah basically a bloody concept, no other way about it?
I think it's a bloody concept. I'm not sure that means a lot of U.S. casualties. And as far as the influence of the U.S. election, you know, clearly there was some influence from it, but I don't believe that that's going to be the driving force. I think now that we do have that behind us, we can focus more on the mission at hand, and that's to clean out Fallujah of the insurgents there.
Well, how do they do it?
I don't expect for heavy casualties.
How do the Marines do it? I mean, we see all these tanks, but so what do they do?
Well, it's not just the Marines. There are a lot of Army soldiers that will play a role in this, and the 1st Marine Division will definitely play a role, but it's going to be a combined arms operation to include the Iraqi forces. You're going to have air, you'll have certainly ground forces, but at the end of the day, you're talking about infantrymen going street to street, house to house. Armored cavalry will encircle the city, mechanized infantry will encircle the city, and make sure none of the insurgents get out. But it'll be a combined arms effort, but it's going to be a tough go. Like I said, it's not an open setting where you can use the standoff of the weapon systems.
How do you How do you conduct the war? Let's just give them a big benefit of the doubt and say there's 10,000 insurgents in Fallujah. And I don't know that that's an accurate number, but let's just say there is. It's a city of 500,000. How do you go kill 10,000 without killing a lot of the innocent 500,000?
Well, you begin with strict rules of engagement. Then you have extremely well-trained soldiers, and that will certainly be the case as we go in. It's going to take enormous discipline of our soldiers to make sure that there's not a lot of collateral damage. But more than anything, we've got to go in and make sure we root out those 10,000 or however many there might be so that the 500,000 can live in peace.
I mean, do we say to the 500,000 2 days before the assault, this is a very good time to leave? We'd like to see you all load up your cars and drive out now?
Well, in fact, we've already said that. We've begun psychological operations over the past several days where we've been broadcasting exactly that. So to those 500,000 that don't want to be in town over the next few weeks, then they ought to leave. But hopefully we'll be able to clean out the insurgents quickly and they can return back. And when they do, they're going to have a much safer environment where they can pursue their lives.
All right. Rob Holmes was in the Gulf War, and tell us about what he thinks is going to go on in Fallujah. Appreciate it, Rob. Thanks very much. Coming up in the big story, the war on terror played a big part in the president's re-election, so what part will it play in the president's second term? Forget everything you've thought about lawyers, or at least this lawyer. We'll introduce you to a lawyer who is going from the courthouse to the battlefield. Plus, a stolen car, lots of cops, a freeway, and the same old ending. We'll tell you what caused this car chase.
This chair doesn't look frightening. It's just oak, glue, and nails. But if you ever find yourself in it, it can be the scariest place on the planet. It's the defendant's chair. And Allstate knows how intimidating it can feel. If you're an Allstate customer and you're sued over an accident, they'll send a lawyer to defend you. You should never be alone. That's Allstate stand. Are you in good hands?
Introducing new Kellogg's Fruit Harvest Banana Berry with slices of sweet bananas, whole red raspberry, and vine-ripened strawberries. It makes breakfast the place you really want to be. New Kellogg's Fruit Harvest Banana Berry.
Let's talk about better. When someone says something's better, it's usually just their opinion. So if you suffer from acid reflux disease, frequent heartburn, and I told you prescription Nexium heals acid-related damage in the esophagus better, you'd want proof. And now, your doctor has that proof.
Recent medical studies prove Nexium heals that damage better than the other leading prescription medicine. No wonder they call Nexium the healing purple pill. This is big news, so call your doctor today and ask if Nexium is right for you. Because if left untreated, the damage could get worse. Other serious stomach conditions may still exist. The most common side effects of Nexium are headache, diarrhea, and abdominal pain.
Hey, with Nexium, you don't just feel better, you are better.
And better is better. For a free trial offer for Nexium, visit us at purplepill.com or call 1-800-4-NEXIUM.
Overweight people can feel like members of the unhappiest club on earth, the Overweight Club. It's a lifestyle that revolves around fad diets, avoiding food, unflattering clothes, and bad news when you step on the scale. Dr. Talbot invites you to step off that scale and into the Cortislim lifestyle, a start to a healthy, happy you. You know people who found the Cortislim lifestyle. They're the ones you secretly resent when you notice they do look better or when they share how great they feel. They've canceled their membership in the unhappiest club on earth because they've learned how to manage everyday stress through exercise, nutrition, diet, and supplementation, including Cortislim. They've discovered the stress-cortisol-weight connection you've been hearing about. If you're ready, I invite you to step off the scale and into the Cortislim lifestyle.
Call 1-800-440-1932. 1-800-440-1932. Call now.
We are fighting a continuing war on terror.
and every American has a stake in the outcome of this war. In order for Iraq to be a free country, those who are trying to stop the elections and stop a free society from emerging must be defeated.
Iraq and the war on terror, both decisive issues leading up to the election. Now that he's won, President Bush says he will stay the course. Joining me now from Harvard, Elaine Kamarck, who served as senior advisor to Al Gore's campaign, and in New York, Republican pollster Kellyanne Conway. Kellyanne, I want to go to you first. The president sort of famously yesterday said, well, I got some political capital and I'm going to spend it. What does that mean in terms of Iraq?
It probably means staying the course in Iraq, continuing the fight there, and that has shown up in the polls, John, again and again. In other words, terror really was the #1 issue to most of the 118 million people casting a vote on Tuesday. I do want to make the distinction, though, because John Kerry and George W. Bush both deserve a little bit of credit. George W. Bush fared well by 3-to-1 margin over Kerry on people who said that winning the war on terror was their #1 issue on Tuesday. But John Kerry did much better than the president on people who said the situation in Iraq is the #1 issue to them. So that meant that voters made a distinction and a difference in their own minds between the specific situation in Iraq and the general war on terror. So-called security moms did favor the president by 18 points over Kerry, but those who are more interested in the war in Iraq than even moral issues or the broader war on terror do have some conflicting views on the president's policy. I think what the president is signaling to all of us is that he's going to build a consensus, he's going to continue the fight in Iraq, and that, as he has told us again and again over the last 2 or 3 years since 9/11, war is heck, and it does take a long time to build the peace.
War is heck. That's a certain ring to it, Kellyanne. Elaine, John Kerry said, I'll hunt down the terrorists, I'll kill them. I wouldn't expect the Democrats to disagree too much at this point, right?
No, I mean, I don't think there were great big disagreements on what needs to happen in Iraq. I do think the president is facing, however, some very, very difficult times in Iraq, mostly because the Army and the National Guard are stretched so thin there. People are not getting to come home for their rotations. The National Guard is having difficulty replacing people because people have been abroad for too long. And so I think that the president's got some real problems. You add the sort of Army being bogged down in Iraq and add to that the budget deficits, which are going to make it difficult to do very, very big increases in military salaries, the sort of things that might induce more people into the military. And I think he's got a real problem going forward if he wants to continue the kind of aggressive foreign policy that he had in the first term.
Well, Kellyanne, if while we are finishing up Iraq, would you anticipate that a President Bush, with his political capital and is willing to spend it, would do anything else militarily?
I didn't hear the last part. I'm sorry.
Kellyanne, go ahead. Well, I mean, you know, Iran is out there shuddering in its boots. Sure. Do they really need to be worried about an American invasion?
Well, what they need to be worried about is that this president, who most of Europe and the Middle East opposed and did not want to be reelected, is very serious about continuing the effort abroad. This was not a political issue for campaign season for this president. He staked his entire presidential fortunes and his entire presidential legacy on winning the peace in Iraq, Afghanistan, and elsewhere. He's been very clear and decisive in that, and John and Elaine, I think unequivocally, that is why this president continued to dominate John Kerry, even as of Election Day and the day after, on the question of who takes a position and sticks with it. There, the president had double-digit advantages over John Kerry. That began with his position on Iraq, Iran, the Middle East, terrorism generally, and he is a man who never wavered from that, even when the polls suggested that he should, even when close advisors suggested that he might.
You know, Elaine, I'm curious. I mean, there's a whole lot of people, of course, crying crocodile tears about President Bush being reelected. I see it in the columns in the LA Times and the New York Times and wherever. But if there had been a President Kerry, this attack on Fallujah would be going on, wouldn't it? The next place, wherever the insurgents would be going on, wouldn't it? I mean, those people who are so upset about President Bush, they wouldn't have been made any happier by the way Kerry approached Iraq, would they?
No, I think that Kerry would have to continue the policy at least for a while. But I think what the president is facing, and you brought it up when you said Iran, is that a lot of people who are most worried about this president's foreign policy are worried about the fact that by being so bogged down in Iraq, we don't have the flexibility, the troop strength, the money, anything else to take on any other serious problems, say, in Iran.
Those are the very same people who would never allow him to take on any problem in Iraq. They'd scream bloody murder if he thought about it.
Elaine, including John Kerry, because you're saying that you're saying we don't have the resources. It was John Kerry who voted against the $87 billion, and everybody, even some of his close advisors, will admit to you that.
Elaine, I mean, there is
John Kerry also proposed more divisions. John Kerry also understood the need for greater troop strength in Iraq from the beginning, and was constantly critical of this administration for the fact that they have created a series of problems, a real quagmire in Iraq that they didn't need to create. It was incompetence in the pursuit of this war that has in fact made us more dangerous and made our troops
what
subject
Elaine
to great
seems
danger.
to be saying is George Bush is falling short on military efforts. I mean, most people would find that an astonishing statement. Would you expect him, George Bush, to say, well, you know, maybe Kerry was right, I need a couple more divisions?
No, because apparently the American people agreed, a majority of them anyway, with the kind of policy that we're undertaking. And look, we do need to do more to back up our military, to fund our military, but the problem that Kerry had was that he had actually voted against the $87 billion. It's not water under the bridge. It cost him precious political currency in this election because people knew that he had voted for the war but then left their troops naked and without health benefits. And that did cost him. So then for one of his top advisors and supporters to now say, to suggest that John Kerry would have funded this war, would have made our military more strong, when he himself had the chance as a United States Senator and failed to do that, is, I think, hogwash.
Well, I just said, Kellyanne, it was water under the bridge because he did lose, and it's over.
No,
I got to thank both of you because I'm out of time. Elaine, K. Martin, Kelly, and Conway. Appreciate it, both of you. Coming up on the big story, President Bush talking about spending political capital, but what about the real stuff? We'll ask former Labor Secretary Robert Reich what will happen to our bank accounts over the next 4 years.
And just when you thought it was safe to stop talking about the elections, here comes 2008. And believe it or not, the politicos are already kicking around the names. I'm Heather Nauert, and I'll tell you who the rising stars are and how they plan to get ready.
And he's trading his legal briefs for combat boots, so why would a Dallas attorney making 6 figures throw it all away and join the Army? We will ask him.
If you have great credit, shouldn't you get a better rate when you refinance? At eLoan you do. We process your loan differently, online. That costs less, so you get a great rate with no lender fees. Apply today at eLoan.com.
Having a hard time finding the perfect home? Now there's JustListed.com. Just Listed emails you every home that's right for you as soon as it hits the market. JustListed.com, where your next home finds you.
Gateway Support ranked among the top in PC Magazine's Reader Survey. 13 Editor's Choice Awards, a Best Buy award from PC World. It's almost enough to make a box blush. With Gateway, get more than award-winning quality and great service. Get incredible value, too. Like a complete system for just $499.99. It comes with a fast Intel Pentium 4 processor, a big 17-inch monitor, and lots of storage for the whole family. Call 1-800-GATEWAY and order yours today.
From Sharper Image, the patented Ionic Breeze Quadra cleans and circulates air with no fans, no filters, and is totally silent. According to AC Nielsen, it's America's most trusted brand of air purifier and #1 in customer satisfaction. The Ionic Breeze removes allergens such as pollen, animal dander, also airborne bacteria, viruses, and mold, and helps leave your house smelling fresh and clean. Maintenance is easy. Just pull out the collection grid, wipe it with a cloth or sponge, and slip it back in. Through this special offer, you'll receive a $69 bathroom Ionic Breeze. It will help even dirty bathrooms smell fresh and clean. And a $39 car Ionic Breeze for cleaner air wherever you go. That's over $100 in gifts, free with your order. Call now and get a free 5-year replacement guarantee and ask about free shipping. Call 1-800-910-6881. That's 1-800-910-6881. Call now.
Tonight at 10, it was a bitter and hard-fought trial with both sides claiming a victory. Now, could this high-stakes waiting game be coming to an end? And where does the jury stand?
I'm Greta Van Sester, and join me on the record only on Fox News Channel.
On election night, only one network swept the ratings. Only one network beats CNN and MSNBC. Only one is the most watched, most trusted name in news. Only one. Only Fox News Channel.
Tell us about your political future, Senator.
Oh, I'm having the best time being the senator from New York.
Right. President Bush's re-election victory is only a few days old, but we're already looking ahead to the next battle for the White House. Heather Dowd is here with a look at some of the possible candidates. Hi, Heather.
Hi there, John. Well, of course, just when we thought we were done talking about politics, of course, it's never too soon to start talking about the next election and who's going to try to position himself or herself for the White House. I'm joined by Mark Preston, a senior staff writer for Roll Call newspaper, and that's the big question today, Mark. Who is eyeing the White House for 2008?
Well, I'll tell you what, Heather, there's a long list on both sides of the aisle. You showed that the clip from Hillary Clinton. She's certainly topping the list. There's a lot of liberal Democrats out there that would love to see Hillary Clinton run. On the Democratic side as well, you see somebody a little bit more to the middle, Evan Bayh, who is considered a centrist, and somebody that certainly Democrats who are dismayed at what they saw in this past election would like to see run. Someone who can maybe appeal to middle America, perhaps the South, two areas where Democrats did very poorly, of course, on Tuesday.
And Evan Bayh is a popular guy, Midwestern senator, and also served as governor. But let's talk about that sexier candidate for a second, Hillary Clinton. How on earth can the Democrats not nominate her? She's spent a lot of time this year stumping for the candidates, raising money, campaigning for them. How can they not?
Well, I'll tell you what, Hillary Clinton certainly did a lot. She was a good foot soldier for Democrats over the past couple of years, raising money, as you say, and out there on the stump. But, you know, there is some concern in the Democratic Party right now that they lost the election on the values issue. It's really not really clear why the Democrats lost. You know, several seats in the Senate, a few in the House, and as well as, you know, filling to one seat Mr. Bush. It could have been the war in Iraq. It could have been a confluence of a lot of things. But a lot of people think that the Democratic Party might be too liberal, and if that's the case, then Hillary Clinton wouldn't be the candidate for the Democratic Party to put out there.
As you mentioned, a more palatable candidate. What kinds of things will Edwards do to try to keep his name out there? Because there's been a lot that's been talked about him in the past few days that he's really trying to set the stage for 2008.
You know, interestingly enough, I don't know what John Edwards can do, certainly in the short term. I expect that we'd see him not do very much. You know, his wife was diagnosed with cancer the other day, so I think he's probably going to tend to that. I would expect you to see John Edwards out there on the speaking circuit anyway, certainly making his way around. Don't be surprised to see him in Iowa or New Hampshire sooner rather than later, you know, appearing before dinners or breakfasts, trying to talk to activists, trying to make early inroads.
Is he a dead duck? Are we going to see him again?
No, I don't think he's not a dead duck, and I think it's too early to say anyone's a dead duck at this point. But I think Democrats might even look out to the states. Don't be surprised, too, to see Democrats look at Iowa Governor Tom Vilsack or perhaps New Mexico Governor Bill Richardson. You know, maybe get outside of Washington to look for their candidate.
Okay, and let's talk about the Republican side. We hear a lot of talk about Giuliani and McCain, but are they necessarily conservative enough to appeal to the conservative base that, as we've seen through this election, is so important to Republicans?
Well, I'll tell you what, they're two great names to talk about, and you'll certainly hear them over the next 3 years. The problem with Giuliani is of course, his social views, and, you know, that's not going to sit well with a lot of the Republican-based voters. The problem with McCain is that a lot of the real conservatives don't like John McCain, even though he is conservative. He's not somebody that is in lockstep with the Republican Party, and he's shown that over the last couple of years. You know, a couple other names out there that I think that you're certainly going to see is someone such as Senate Majority Leader Bill Frist. He will retire in 2006. He'll have 2 years now to run for the president, and we think he's going to do that, as well as Senator Sam Brown.
A lot of political capital right now. He, just like Hillary Clinton, was out spending a lot of money, which you really can't understate how important that is to getting the faithful people from the party to back them. Is that right?
No, absolutely. I mean, he was out there. He was raising money. He was stumping for candidates. He even went into South Dakota and to stump against Senate Minority Leader Tom Daschle, which proved successful but very controversial. Another person you'll see because of that, trying to ride a little bit of the sweep from 2004 is George Allen. He's a former Virginia governor who's running for a second term. He'll likely win in 2006, so he's someone who's going to look as well.
Okay, and what about Jeb Bush and some of the others from the state level?
Sure. I mean, you want to talk about a dynasty. I guess Jeb Bush has said he does not want to run or would not run, but, you know, things can change. Certainly, his brother did very well this past week. He's someone who's very popular down in Florida. Jeb Bush could certainly be a candidate, even though he says now he might not be. I think if you even just look here in Washington, what would be really interesting is to see who's really going to run for that conservative vote, the real religious, perhaps moral vote. And I think that you're going to see Frist, Senator Rick Santorum, and Senator Sam Brownback all trying to vie for that.
All right, Mark Preston of Roll Call. We're going to have to leave it there, and we have at least 6 other names that we didn't get a chance to get to, so maybe next time. I appreciate it.
4 more years.
All right.
Terrific.
Plenty of time. John?
All right, Heather, thanks very much. Time now to head over to Jane Skinner with the rest of today's headlines. Hi, Jane.
Hi, John. Thanks very much, and hello, everybody. A group led by Iraq's most wanted terrorist is reportedly calling for the release of a kidnapped aid worker. Reuters news service is reporting that followers of Abu Musab al-Zarqawi want the Iraqi militants holding Margaret Hassan to let her go. The group says there is no evidence of any wrongdoing on her part. Hassan, who is a British citizen, was abducted near her Baghdad office last month. Her captors are demanding British troops leave Iraq. Of course, we will keep you posted as we get any more information on this. Yasser Arafat is reportedly on his deathbed. The Palestinian leader is said to be in a coma, which may or may not be reversible, depending on who you listen to. A Palestinian envoy admits, however, Arafat is at what he calls a critical juncture between life and death. Meanwhile, a quiet battle is being waged over where he will eventually be buried. Arafat has said he wants to be buried in Jerusalem. However, Israel is refusing, with officials saying Jerusalem is not a city where they want to bury a quote, Arab terrorist. A New Jersey school that accidentally became part of some military target practice will reopen on Monday. The National Guard is still trying to figure out why an F-16 fighter jet fired at the school on Wednesday night. The pilot was supposed to be aiming at a practice target about 3.5 miles away. The damage at the school is said to be minor. About 8 of the 2-inch lead rounds punched their way into classrooms and nobody was hurt. A high-speed chase in the L.A. area. Cops chasing down a car that was reported stolen by a man, but the driver turned out to be a 19-year-old woman. The car was weaving through lanes and ran through intersections. Police eventually boxed the vehicle in, and when the driver tried to make a U-turn, right there you can see she hit a deputy's car head-on. She was arrested and taken to jail. So look at some of your other headlines. Time now to send you back to John.
All right, Jane, thanks very much. Time now for a look at stocks after the closing bell. The Dow advancing 72, the NASDAQ gaining 15, and the S&P up 4. A big jump in jobs, getting credit for boosting the market. So how will this affect the overall economy? Gary B. Smith will appear on Bulls and Bears Saturday at 10 a.m. Eastern, as always. He's also a columnist for realmoney.com. So here it was, elections over, and what do you know, the president gets a nice pop on the jobs numbers. Okay, it's good. It would have been good politically. Does it mean a whole lot to the economy?
Yeah, I think it does. I mean, look, it was, as you point out, John, it was perfect timing right out of the chute. Boy, you know, I'm, 4 more years, we're starting out terrific. I think what it says is that you can have faith in what Bush is doing. Certainly boosts the backup, if you will, the argument for the tax cuts, because we've seen the jobs increase. We've seen unemployment, remain level. I think the economy's in good shape right now.
Well, what is it that Bush is, we hear this talk about major restructuring of the tax code. Now, that, it doesn't matter who's speaking those words. As soon as they say it, I go to sleep.
Yeah.
What does it mean in a way that would interest the rest of us?
Well, I think right now the tax code is probably 7,000 pages long. What it means is simplification. Right now it is very, very difficult, despite what the Republicans or the president says, to, for the president to affect the economy, even with tax cuts, because, once you cut he's really cutting the tax rates. Once you cut the rate, it's tough, with all the loopholes and double twists and things, to affect people's bottom line pay. So if you make the tax code simpler, you can have a more direct effect. And of course, you would say that, it would make things even across the board from, the upper class to the lower class, if you will.
Gary B. Smith, Bulls and Bears, Saturday morning at 10 a.m. Don't miss him. He's also known as the chairman.
The chart man.
I like the chairman better. You look a lot like Frank Sinatra.
They haven't promoted me yet.
All right, columnist for realmoney.com. Gary, thanks a lot. Appreciate you coming on. Coming up in the big story, looking for a little extra money. 4 more years for President Bush could mean less taxes for some people, but Democrats warn there is a downside. plus an attorney of one. Would you give up big money and a great career to join the Army? We'll speak with a young man who's doing just that.
Homeowners insurance covers all this, but not this. To protect your home from a flood, call 1-888-FLOOD-80 for your free brochure.
All across America, a wonderful thing happened to 46 million wireless phones. They changed overnight. They have become more versatile, more powerful, with access to the largest digital voice and data network in America and the largest mobile-to-mobile calling community. All because Cingular and AT&T Wireless have joined forces. And if you're one of those lucky 46 million customers, you don't have to do a thing. The new Cingular. We're raising the bar.
The same year my little girl got married, I was diagnosed with rheumatoid arthritis. But I wasn't going to let that stop me from enjoying my granddaughter.
If you have moderate to severe rheumatoid arthritis, call now to receive important information about Remicade. Remicade can change the course of rheumatoid arthritis by helping to stop further joint damage as it relieves pain and stiffness. Your doctor will use Remicade with methotrexate. Call now to receive information about what you can do to help stop further joint damage.
Remicade is not for everyone. Many people with heart failure shouldn't take Remicade. Remicade can lower resistance to infection. Your doctor should assess your risk of infection, and you should alert your doctor to any signs such as fever, fatigue, cough, or the flu. Serious events, some fatal, have been reported with Remicade, including infections such as tuberculosis and blood disorders. Nervous system disorders and lymphoma have also occurred. Remicade infusions may cause serious allergic reactions, including hives, trouble breathing, and low blood pressure.
Call now to find out how Remicade can change the course of RA for you.
And I have promoted during the course of the last 4 years one of the most aggressive pro-entrepreneur small business policies. Tax relief.
The next 4 years off to a good start. About 337,000 new jobs were added to the economy last month, twice as many as expected. President Bush says he plans to keep the economy moving in his second term. Tax reform high on his list. I'm joined now by former Labor Secretary Robert Reich and former New York Senator Al D'Amato. Welcome to you both. So, Secretary Reich, you know, I hear some of the people that write columns from the left who are especially upset with Bush sounding an alarm that somehow he's going to turn into a flat taxer overnight. Is that what we're looking at?
I have no idea, John, but the big constraint operating on this administration now and in the future is the budget deficit. You've got $416 billion as far as the eye can see, and it's going to be very hard to cut taxes or to privatize Social Security with that kind of a bill, with that kind of running in the red. And, you know, Alan Greenspan stands by ready to raise interest rates at the slightest hint of inflation, and in fact, it's already happening.
Inflation is already happening?
No, interest rates are already rising, even before inflation is happening. And if you've got these huge budget deficits, and at the same time, the new president or the president wants to reduce taxes and wants to privatize Social Security, which is going to cost a huge amount of money, where's all the money going to come from?
Senator D'Amato, I believe the idea is it comes from new businesses, new economic activity, growth producing more taxes, and it piles up in the Treasury. And then we asked Mr. Reich to come back and explain himself. Is that the idea?
Mr. Secretary, I would be happy to explain it, but supply-side economics doesn't work.
But it does. The fact of the matter is that no less than John Kennedy, President Kennedy, demonstrated that it worked when he cut capital gains taxes. It creates the initiative for businesses to spend more and invest more, and it creates more an economic return to the government. Secondly, the fact that you have 336,000 new jobs, and the fact over, I guess it was the last 16 months, you had 2 million new jobs that have been created. Most of that as a result of reducing taxes for the upper brackets right through to the lowest, giving child tax credits. And now the president says, let's permanentize that. You're going to continue to see job growth. And there's no way to get the deficits down without that job growth, which continues the economic stimulation, which continues to tax revenues. You don't get it by raising taxes. It costs jobs.
All right,
and that's the battle. And
Secretary
look
Rice,
I think even the senator would agree with me, and maybe you would agree with me, that spending is completely out of control, as John McCain has said.
There's a war on
this
it.
administration is spending. No, even non-defense spending. In fact, John, look at non-defense spending has been rising at an average under this administration of 8% a year. Now, contrast that with Bill Clinton's administration, in which spending went up 4.3% a year. And that's non-defense spending. This administration has not encountered a spending bill that it has vetoed.
That many of you on your side and during the Clinton administration used to say that Bill Clinton's judicious raising of taxes at a certain point is what led to an expansion of the economy. Counterintuitive, why did that occur?
You got the deficit. Bill Clinton got the deficit down, John, and that allowed the Federal Reserve Board to reduce interest rates and long-term interest rates. The bond traders, they also got much calmer about inflation. Long-term interest rates went down, and that led to the longest peacetime expansion we've had in this nation's history.
Mr. Secretary, take a look at where interest rates are now. They're at historic lows and have been at those levels, and inflation has been kept down at the same time. And let me say this, John hit the nail on the head. One of the reasons we have extraordinary deficits is the war, and it is costing $100 billion plus that we are putting out, and that adds to it substantially. And let me say this to you, the big challenge that this administration faces is that within the next 18 months, the president, hopefully, we're going to get that situation in Iraq stabilized. If we don't, I'm talking as Republicans and as the nation, I think the people will turn against us. If we do, then you're going to have the benefit of reduced expenditures. You're going to have a tranquility that calms the world markets down, the oil supply markets, etc. And we are going to have continued economic expansion. So I think the big thing
a very rosy picture the senator is painting. What's wrong?
Well, I think it's much too rosy because there's no sign that this deficit is going away anytime soon. 1/3 of this deficit is because of the tax cut. 1/3 is because of spending increases. 1/3 is because of the huge military buildup. And those are not going to change. If George Bush gets his permanent tax cuts, and on top of that wants to privatize Social Security, and on top of that wants to continue to wage a war against terrorism, how are you going to possibly privatize Social Security?
Before I run out of time, both of you,
the math doesn't work, folks.
One-name answer. Robert Reich, who's the new Alan Greenspan?
Well, I would have said it was going to be Robert Rubin, obviously, if there was a Kerry administration. But under the present circumstances, maybe John Snow will move from Treasury Secretary over there. I really don't know.
Who do you think the next Greenspan is?
I'd like to see Greenspan continue, and I think he will for a while.
All right. Thanks to both of you. Senator Al D'Amato, Robert Reich, appreciate it. Still ahead in the big story, why would a successful lawyer trade his six-figure salary for Army fatigues? We will ask the man who is doing precisely that.
If a lazy moment turns into the right moment, will you be ready? Get to know Cialis, the first tablet for erectile dysfunction that gives you up to 36 hours to choose the moment that's right for you and your partner. Cialis goes to work fast and can work for up to 36 hours. Cialis is not for everyone. If you take nitrates for chest pain or certain alpha blockers for prostate problems or high blood pressure, do not take Cialis. Such combinations could cause a sudden unsafe drop in blood pressure. Don't drink alcohol in excess with Cialis. The most common side effects were headache, upset stomach, delayed backache, or muscle ache. Erections lasting longer than 4 hours, though rare, require immediate medical help. Discuss your health status with your doctor to ensure Cialis is right for you and you are healthy enough for sexual activity. Ask your doctor if a free sample of prescription Cialis is right for you. 36-hour Cialis. When the moment is right, will you be ready? Experience a devotion that knows no limit. Experience a love like no other. A Mel Gibson film. Jim Caviezel. The Passion of the Christ. Rated R.
I'm no director.
But I know a great movie when I see one.
I am no detective, but I know where to find hundreds of movies a month.
I can tell when things are here. I just...
Commercial-free movie.
On Star. For Frodo. Oh. I'm no CPA, but I know lots of Star channels add up to a great movie.
I'm no brain surgeon.
But I can operate my remote to see new hit movies.
On Stars.
Hey, I'm no astronomer, but I know where to see stars.
If you like movies, order Stars, one of the 8 great movie channels in the Stars Super Pack. You'll get over 350 different movies each month and a new hit movie premiere every Saturday night. Call 888-DISH-130 and ask for Stars today.
Homeowners, the average credit card rate is over 13%. Ouch. But Countrywide has a home equity loan at this low rate. Just think of how much money you'd save by paying off all your high-rate credit cards with this low-rate home equity loan from Countrywide. Just pick up the phone, get a quick upfront approval, and get your cash fast. Did I say call? So call Countrywide and get this low rate today. Call 1-866-436-0514.
U.S. troops in Iraq during Operation Iraqi Freedom. Scenes like that played out on TV screens across the country, inspiring a whole new generation of military recruits. Michael Brown was a lawyer in Dallas, making 6 figures, but he's giving it up to risk his life and fight for our country. He leaves for basic training on Monday and hopes to become an elite Army Ranger. So, Michael, why'd you quit your law job and all that loot to go into the Army?
Well, John, I think you have to kind of ask yourself, first of all, what brings you the greatest joy in life? And if it's to go for the money, then, you know, that might be, you know, a reason why I would have stayed with the law job. But what I wanted to do was to serve the Lord and serve my country. And I really believe that He's put a desire in my heart that I had even in Mississippi College when I was playing college football, which was you had a bunch of guys that were all together, and you were working to all one goal. It was blood, sweat, and tears for a mission. And I feel like it'll be that same way in the Army on a much higher level. You've got a camaraderie with a bunch of guys that are elite group of fighters that want to work together and all have that same mission and goal. And that's something that really attracted me to the Army.
Okay, now just back up a little bit here, Michael. What was your job as a lawyer? What kind of law work did you do?
I did personal injury defense and construction defect defense work.
Did you get tired of it?
No, wasn't tired of it. I enjoyed the people that I worked with. They were great, but at the same time, you have that desire that I was telling you that I had playing football at Mississippi College, and it was that desire that kind of stays in your heart and continues to stay there until you really just can't put it down anymore, and you feel like that's something that you got to go ahead and give a shot.
Listen, Michael, we admire you, but I got to ask you, you go into this Army recruiter, you say, hi, I'm a lawyer, I'm making 6 figures, I want to sign up for your Army. The recruiter's job is to hit the desk.
Right. I think he was maybe a little surprised. At the same time, I think he was wondering if I was very serious about this. And really, he did a great job of, you know, not pushing at all. He was very patient with me and really just came out and told me the truth about the Special Forces, the Green Beret, and the Rangers, which I'm really looking forward to doing. And he told me, I told him right after we got through talking, he came to my house, I said, I'm going to need a little time to really think about this. And I think I called him back a couple of days later and said, let's go ahead and get moving on it.
Now, Michael, I didn't notice what is going on in your personal life. You got a wife? You got kids?
No, sir. No wife or kids or girlfriend either.
All right, so you're ready to go. Now, what are you leaving behind? What kind of car do you drive?
Driving Infiniti, an I-30.
Yeah, and tell me about that big swanky condo a lawyer lives in.
Well, it was nice, but, you know, I went on some mission trips in Peru with the church and enjoyed just being in the barracks with the mission group, and I'm enjoying and looking forward to really spending the time with the troops wherever I'm going to be.
So tell me what you think your new life is going to be like in the Army, possibly in Iraq.
Well, John, I'm not sure exactly what it will be like. I think it'll be a group of guys who all have the same intentions of learning as much as we can. I believe it'll be some intense training, and I think that there'll be great bonding. I think we'll develop wonderful friendships, and then we'll go over there and strive to do a mission that our leader, our commander-in-chief, has called us to do so that we can free the people there and also give them a great hope and continue to have the freedom we have here in the United States.
Lawyer Michael Brown, heading off to be soldier Michael Brown. Michael, thank you very much. Appreciate your service. Thanks for coming on, and of course, good luck.
Thank you very much. I appreciate it.
All right. Straight ahead, my word.
$120.90.
I'll just put it on the credit card.
But those rates.
Don't worry. I'll just put it on our Capital One Prime Lock card.
Introducing the new Capital One Prime Lock card. It's set at prime, so you never have to worry about your interest rate again. Check your mailbox for details.
What's in your wallet?
This holiday,
Still not done.
cook your bird in about an hour with an electric fryer big enough to cook a turkey, only from the Home Depot. Just set the automatic temperature control on this Charm Glow electric fryer and you'll get a juicy, perfectly brown turkey in record time. All for only $99.98. Order now to get free shipping.
So call, click, or visit your local Home Depot store today for inspiring gifts. And our gift card. It's on everyone's list. I'm done. The Home Depot. You can do it. We can help.
Katie was sure of her cholesterol plan. She took medication, she ate right and ran. Yet it wasn't enough to get bad cholesterol low. What's this? I'm still here in the land of no. Switch to Crestor, her doctor said. You're not to blame. All cholesterol drugs simply aren't the same. When Crestor performed in a head-to-head test, its lowering effect was clearly the best. Crestor's proven effective. That's well understood. Would you like to try it? Why, yes. Yes, I would.
Ask your doctor about Crestor. Crestor is not for everyone, including people with liver disease and women who are nursing, pregnant, or may become pregnant. Simple blood tests are needed to check for liver problems. Tell your doctor about other medications you were taking, or if you experience muscle pain or weakness, as it may be a sign of serious side effects.
Since Katie switched to Crestor, her cholesterol's much less. With Crestor and diet, it's the land of success. Get your free trial today and you just might declare, I'm a Crestor success. Now you're getting somewhere.
Saturday, the aftermath of election 2004, the power plays and the power players. It's a breakdown of what happens next in Washington. Mort and Fred, the Beltway boys. Then, should election exit polls get shown the door, an in-depth look at the polls and their impact on media coverage. It's a special edition of Fox News Watch. Plus, all the biggest stories from around the country and around the globe. Get ready for the Fox Report. Only one network is the #1 name in cable news. Only one. Only Fox News Channel.
My word, Iraq's interim Prime Minister Alawi stepped on some toes yesterday when he said some of America's so-called European allies were spectators in the Iraq war. The French responded by snubbing Alawi, having an official European Union welcome deleted from a statement on Iraq, and then that oily Chirac ran off to see Arafat on his deathbed. Imagine, preferring to hold a conversation with a terrorist in a coma rather than meeting with a man who's trying to bring the values of the French Revolution to poor beat-up Iraq. And then the Prime Minister of Luxembourg spoke up. How many of you can find that particular postage stamp on the map? And he said he didn't like being called a spectator state. Well, Luxembourg was a spectator and still is. Germany got huffy and reminded Alawi they're training Iraqi cops in Germany and had agreed to reduce Iraq's debt. Let's see, any danger involved in training those cops back at Hamburg? And was that Iraqi debt to Germany unwise German loans to the butcher of Baghdad himself? Maybe they should go see him. Oh, never mind. Those euros are what they are. Too weak to lead and too proud to follow. What about our fellow Americans? The New York Times listed its 5 most emailed articles today. All 5 were from yesterday's post-election sob fest. The New York Times' Thomas Friedman, normally moderate and clear-thinking, spewed bitterness, writing, quote, "This was not an election, it was a station identification. I'd bet anything," he said, "that if the election ballots hadn't had the names Bush and Kerry on them, but simply said, do you watch Fox TV or read the New York Times, the Electoral College would have broken exactly the same way." Hey, Thomas, Fox is big, but 59 million viewers? I don't think so. Times columnist Paul Krugman titled his column yesterday, "No Surrender," as if he were hunkered down against Bush in Fallujah. There is good news. Many of these people are threatening to move to Canada. That's my word. Special report, Britt Hume up next. Jim Engel sitting.